A passionate plea motivated by patriotism. Hundreds of Canadians lining Windsor's riverfront, facing the Detroit skyline.
Trump is not making America great. He's making America hate. We love Americans. Dump Trump.
Protests are happening just as President Trump's reciprocal tariffs on Canada and Mexico are set to take effect.
Chaos. One word that encapsulates the tension rattling Canada's automotive heartland. Observers are warning of an unprecedented crisis that may undermine decades of industrial growth and job security. Recent policy shifts in the United States have sparked turmoil, pushing the delicate balance of cross-border trade to the edge. Just 3 days ago, officials in Ottawa doubled down on concerns that these new measures threaten to unravel Canada's manufacturing backbone. While the world has seen trade wars before, this time feels different. There's a sense that what happens now could permanently reshape an entire sector. A long history of collaborative production once tied Canadian plants to American buyers, but with fresh tariffs in play, that history is in grave jeopardy.
According to economists, Trump's threatened tariffs would pose serious challenges to Canada's labor market.
And in a twist few anticipated, the electric revolution is racing forward in the United States, leaving Canadian industry watchers feeling left behind. Doubts swirl about whether a pivot to renewable energy can offset the shock. Hold on tight, because the reverberations of this standoff extend far beyond one nation's borders, and they're about to get a lot worse.
An emergency meeting of auto workers in Oshawa, Ontario, trying to make sense of the impact of any tariffs.
Within weeks, Canadian automotive plants that once buzzed with steady production have found themselves in a tailspin. Roughly 25% tariffs imposed by the United States on cars and parts made in Canada are sending shockwaves through factory floors. Experts say Canada's automotive industry is in chaos. Echoes across national headlines as thousands brace for the fallout. Industry observers fear that if immediate action is not taken, up to 50,000 jobs could be lost in the blink of an eye. Tensions are so high that in a retaliatory response, Canadian authorities slapped a similar 25% hike on certain American car imports. The stakes are colossal. Cross-border supply lines, already battered by recent economic disruptions, are under fresh assault. Millions of parts that usually flow unobstructed now face steep levies, turning collaboration into confrontation. Workplace morale is plummeting, and communities that depended on auto factories are confronted by a daunting question. Will Canada's automotive infrastructure collapse entirely? Government spokespeople insist that the worst can be avoided through negotiation, but union representatives are less optimistic, pointing to the grim reality of sudden layoffs. Early indicators show thousands of workers receiving pink slips almost as soon as the tariffs took effect. Meanwhile, in a seemingly parallel universe across the border, Tesla has unveiled a single-motor long-range Model 3, tempting American buyers with cutting-edge performance at a tantalizing price. As Canada battles a looming economic upheaval, Tesla's bold move offers U.S. consumers a glimpse of an electric future unburdened by immediate trade woes. This contrast, a crisis on one side and innovation on the other, forms the heart of a larger story. First in the line of fire are the Canadian auto workers. In Windsor, Ontario, 6,000 unionized employees received short-term layoff notices right after tariffs took effect. Some are reeling from the possibility these short-term measures might become permanent. Families describe a sickening tension. Mortgages, tuition, and day-to-day bills swirl in uncertainty. Spiraling anxiety grips entire neighborhoods. The phrase 6,000 layoffs in a single day, and more could come, is no longer just a sensational headline. It's a living nightmare for hundreds of households. Government officials in Ottawa are scrambling, and they have announced a 25% counter tariff, certain that it will pressure Washington into reconsidering its stance. Yet critics argue that this tit-for-tat approach only escalates the standoff, risking a prolonged trade war that could cripple local suppliers. Observers note that even though Canadian vehicle production soared by a striking 26% in the year 2023, those gains might vanish if the border remains a tariff battlefield. Some in the industry warn that Canada's fortunes could change almost overnight, dissolving the modest recovery achieved post-pandemic. Corporate leaders at major automakers, some based in the United States, some in Canada, are caught in a whirlwind of sudden manufacturing cost hikes, uncertain demand, and cross-border hostility. Supply chain managers are urgently redrawing distribution routes, but no one knows if retooling plants or seeking alternate production sites can mitigate the cost blow. The possibility of a deeper economic crisis looms. If Canada's factories fail to adapt quickly, the reverberations could roll across North America, toppling subsidiary industries like parts manufacturing, trucking, and shipping. On the U.S. side, policy insiders see the new tariffs as part of a broader strategy to push for domestic manufacturing growth. The official line is to protect American jobs, but critics challenge whether the real effect is simply fracturing historic partnerships. Complicating matters further, the United States is simultaneously incentivizing domestic electric vehicle purchases, luring American buyers away from traditional imports. That's where Tesla intensifies the drama. Tesla occupies a unique position, forging ahead with its single-motor long-range Model 3. Priced at $42,500 before incentives, it arrives just as well-publicized tensions explode across the border. With an Environmental Protection Agency rated range of 363 miles, it's a direct appeal to thrifty buyers who want advanced EV technology without paying for the dual-motor upgrade. Observers note that Tesla has singled out U.S. consumers for this particular variant, leaving Canadian and other international buyers frustrated. Analysts wonder aloud, could this new Tesla overshadow the crumbling Canadian sector? Or even worse, in the sense of abandonment for those who can't access it? Standing back, the conflict resonates far beyond North America's borders. Automotive markets in Europe, Asia, and beyond have long relied on stable US-Canada cooperation to ensure consistent flows of parts and completed vehicles. If each side keeps ratcheting up retaliatory measures, global supply chains could face overwhelming uncertainty. Economic planners in countries like Mexico and Japan are already monitoring the situation, worried that additional man-made obstacles could spark a chain reaction in raw material costs. These developments also spotlight a profound irony. At the very moment Canada's traditional auto manufacturing faces partial collapse, the electric revolution is accelerating in the United States. The single-motor Model 3 introduces an affordable route to EV ownership for many Americans, especially since a federal tax credit of $7,500 is often within reach. International buyers, however, remain on the outside, lamenting the lack of access to the same incentives or even the same model variant. This disparity touches off debates about protectionism not just in the realm of tariffs, but also in the realm of new energy technology. Some in Canada argue that the entire trade war fiasco underscores an urgent need for the country to pivot aggressively into renewables and local EV manufacturing. Canada's automotive producers, having historically relied on building for American consumers, might explore forging new partnerships in emerging markets or double down on homegrown electric ventures. The question is whether this shift can happen fast enough to preserve thousands of endangered jobs and salvage communities built around auto assembly lines. In a tense update from earlier this week, industry analysts pointed out that if current trends persist, the entire North American auto market could fracture into conflicting spheres, one powered by domestic U.S. incentives, another trying to salvage or reinvent Canada's industrial capabilities. That's the headache for trade negotiators in Washington and Ottawa. Will a lengthy trade war drive them to the bargaining table, or plunge them both into an even bigger catastrophe? As of now, neither side shows signs of backing down. Canadian leaders insist that the newly imposed mirrors of 25% tariffs on U.S. car imports are a necessary shield for domestic workers. American officials respond with their own brand of defiance, claiming that the higher cost of Canadian imports is a fair price to ensure American factories remain robust. Observers warn of an escalating countdown that could reshape the entire continent's automotive landscape if new negotiations do not cool the temperature soon. In the meantime, the Tesla factor adds a confounding twist. Industry watchers say the single-motor Model 3, with its lower entry cost and substantial range, might quickly dominate EV sales in America. A steep tax credit drives the effective price below $35,000 for many buyers, supercharging the brand's reach. There is speculation that this new release might eventually expand globally, but no formal announcement has materialized. The frustration among Canadian EV enthusiasts grows by the day. If local auto manufacturing slumps while advanced EV models blossom just across the border, it could amplify dissatisfaction and hasten a Canadian realignment toward renewable industries. Policymakers eye this situation with mounting apprehension. If the tariffs remain in place, the livelihoods of tens of thousands of Canadian workers, and quite possibly segments of the U.S. labor force reliant on Canadian-sourced parts, hang in the balance. The coming months might see a scramble for bilateral negotiations, or a deeper rift that ends up reshaping entire economies. As supply chains freeze and factory gates close, speculation simmers. Will Canada channel its long-standing industrial expertise into a homegrown EV sector? Or will the relentless tariff pressure crack the foundation beyond repair? For now, the stage is set for a dramatic showdown that pits tradition against innovation, neighbor against neighbor, and fossil fuel legacy against electric revolution. The fate of Canada's auto workers is entangled in a trade war that escalates by the day, while an EV juggernaut paves bold new paths in the United States. Could these tensions catalyze a full-scale shift toward renewable energy in Canada? Or will they sound the final death knell for thousands of car industry jobs? The new Tesla that might be the best Model 3 yet, if you can get it. For countless families in Canada's automotive community, that phrase stings. They see an opportunity passing them by, just as their livelihood stands on dangerously thin ice. New developments could break at any moment, bringing relief or deeper despair. What's your take on this unfolding power play? With a single policy change, everything could pivot toward resolution, or spiral further into chaos. And that shadow looms over the entire continent, demanding we all pay attention. No one is immune when the balance between prosperity and struggle hangs by such a thin thread.